Well, I didn't really want to make this video, especially because Rocksteady is one of my favorite game developers, and both Batman Arkham Knight and Batman Arkham City are some of my favorite games of all time. But after the recent previews that came out, I had to cancel my pre-order of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And many of you might say that there was other signs that were quite telling of the game's quality and what it was going to be. Rocksteady wasn't ever known to make online shooters like this one, a live service game. This is very much out of their direction, so maybe I should have used that as a cue to never even pre-order the game, but I had some faith that Rocksteady would be able to pioneer something in that space and create a game that was at least decent by some metrics, maybe not as good as the Arkham series, but in some elements even exceeding them. But what we recently saw with the previews that came out from a bunch of gaming outlets such as GameSpot, IGN and Game Informer, it is quite telling that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League isn't going to be the game I hoped it would be. And that's quite sad to think about, because Rocksteady is such a talented developer. They invented the Arkham games, which in themselves invented the Arkham style of combat that is prevalent in many games today. Even really prominent games such as Marvel's Spider-Man and that entire series uses the Arkham style of combat, and even games like Middle-earth games use the Arkham style of combat in great ways. So seeing that Rocksteady, instead of mastering that further, mastering their craft and getting to something even more amazing than what they created with the Batman Arkham series, Rocksteady has instead been forced to develop a live service looter shooter which is nothing like they did before, and so far the game is looking really disappointing, being more akin to Destiny 2 than games like Batman Arkham Knight, which was the very best of Rocksteady. The previews that recently came out of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League showcased the very worst of Rocksteady so far, trying to create this looter shooter that is nothing like they've ever created before. The previews were very mixed, and reading through them and sifting through them was quite disheartening. Even in IGN's preview of the game, in which they are usually pretty positive or neutral about games that they preview because they haven't played too much of them, and they're pretty much like that for most of their previews, they were not happy with what they played of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And that is really telling of the game that Rocksteady has sadly created, and makes me even more scared to see what is going to come out in February. After the release of Batman Arkham Knight, Rocksteady had so much potential as a game developer to create something truly great, something that went beyond the scope of Batman Arkham, even though those games are absolutely amazing. But instead, this live service looter shooter looks nothing like what they could have created if they made that cancelled Superman game, for example. And the majority of previews from these major gaming outlets are quite negative, and at best I would say they are mixed, although there are some positive elements that I saw throughout the preview. The story of the Batman Arkham games is absolutely phenomenal throughout, and from reading some of these previews and watching through them, it looks like some of that has been retained in Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which might make the experience worth playing if it's on sale, even though the gameplay looks absolutely generic on all measures. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with the game. In fact, it's not just the fact that Rocksteady, a very talented developer in the gaming space, is creating a live service looter shooter, but it's the fact that they've done nothing special in the space, and the game looks like every other looter shooter I've ever seen on the market, which makes it even more disappointing than it already is. Rocksteady has done nothing new in this genre of gaming, and that's one of the biggest problems I've seen. It looks very generic, and they've just taken the very trends of the genre and of the industry as a whole and used them to mold them into a live service looter shooter, using popular characters such as the Suicide Squad and the entire Justice League to bring some sort of appeal to a game that doesn't look very appealing at all. It seems like Rocksteady has fallen to corporate greed like many gaming companies have before them. A company like BioWare, which once created games like Dragon Age Origins and the entire Dragon Age series, or even the Mass Effect trilogy, which is some of my favorite video games of all time, they also fell to corporate greed, with them recently creating Anthem a few years ago. And there's not a lot of hype around the new Dragon Age game or even the new Mass Effect game, as BioWare is not the company it once used to be. Overall, the anticipation I once held for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, despite all the apparent problems that were shown in gameplay trailers, story trailers and whatnot of the game, I still had some hope that Rocksteady would create something truly great, or something that would be a 7 or 8 out of 10. But it looks like from the previews that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is going to be nothing great, and in fact might be a bad game that you should avoid. So I had to cancel my pre-order, and if you're out there and you're looking at this video and have also pre-ordered the game, hope you might reconsider your decision, as this game doesn't look like what we were delivered with the amazing Batman Arkham series many years ago.